All right, guys, we're going to call the meeting to order. Roll call and declaration of quorum.
Dr. Matusa.
Here.
Mr. Lau.
Present.
Mr. Choate.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Present.
Corey had been here before.
I'd like to welcome all our visitors. Thank you for coming this evening. Agenda item 2.2. Do we have any comments? Anybody signed up?
Lockwood.
Mr. Lockwood. All right, very good. He is on the list here down on the agenda. Okay, so seeing no other speakers, we'll continue. No one contacted me. No one contacted Mr. Sternberger. Okay, agenda item 3, the consent agenda. Is there any items that anyone wants to pull out for discussion?
Yeah, we're gonna see if I do this the right way.
Okay.
3.2 and 3.5.
Okay, 3.2 and 3.5 for discussion. Anyone else? All right, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, removing consent agenda item 3.2 and 3.5 for discussion.
Second?
Dr. Matusi.
Yes.
Mr. Lau. Mr. Choate.
Yes.
Mr. Griffin.
Yes, and I will abstain on 3.3 entirely.
Mr. Tillman.
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item 3.2, summary of financial activities and activity funds, summary of accounts as of November 30th.
Yeah, I just had some questions. I wasn't able to get a hold of you, I'm sorry, before when I was looking at this. On the class accounts, from what I understand, the classes get money from dues from the students, and then their junior year, they do like fundraisers and stuff to raise money to pay for the prom. In the past, the junior classes always ran, up until a few years ago, ran the concession stands with the activity funds or the accounts for the sports, like your basketball, football. Those accounts there, what are they required to pay for out of those accounts?
Out of which accounts?
Like the baseball. Baseball has, I don't know, 11,000 or so in their account. What are they, if
They try
baseball does
to,
anything?
basically anything that tries to keep them self-sufficient, where they're not tapping into our general fund.
So they pretty much try to use that first prior to using the general fund?
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
That way, that's the intent. Obviously, some sports generate more revenue than others,
Yeah.
but that's the intent of the activity fund, is where extracurriculars can be
And that money would come from gate and from fundraisers that activity has.
That is correct. Donations, gate, fundraisers,
Gate goes in there.
or gate, yeah.
And that was why I pulled 3.5 was because of the fundraisers. If the community is getting hit with all these fundraisers from athletic programs, and the athletic programs are also getting a percentage of the concession stand and gate fees, and then you turn around and the junior class is having to compete with all these other fundraisers trying to raise money for the classes. If the athletic programs are already getting this other money from fundraisers and stuff, then why can't the classes control the concession stand, or work the concession stand and get a percentage of that?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get your athletic programs are getting.
Well, I know Band Boosters did the football concession.
Yeah.
All the others, I'll have to do research. I'm not aware of
I know
who
during
really
basketball
does what.
season, your athletic, your wrestling teams, your track, cross-country teams are working the concession stand.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I mean, when the classes were doing it, and helped by the sponsors or ran by the sponsors, to me, it was ran a lot better. The concession stand worked out a lot better that way than it has in the last couple of years with the athletic programs running it.
Well, speaking of concession stand, how is that? Walk us through how, you have so many home football games, and this year band took all of those band boosters. For all the junior high and high school basketball games, wrestling duels and tournaments, how is, who puts in for that? How is, walk us through the individual weeks or the entire seasons of concession stand.
Yeah, that's a question that I really wish you guys would ask me like 3 hours ago, where I'd have time prepared.
Well, I'll ask her,
'Cause
she knows.
Yeah,
but-
she might know,
Right.
because I haven't dealt with this yet. I haven't been asked any of this information, so, do you know?
Athletics just has done it the last, I don't know how many years. That's just how it's been.
I haven't, the only thing which changed was last year, whoever had the football before couldn't do it because of COVID, because they didn't want kids in there. And they had made enough money, speaking to that sponsor, so we continued to let the band boosters. Everything else has been ran the way it has in the past, and I don't know what that is. I'll have to do research on that.
Junior class can't, the kids are either in band, football, cheer, I mean, they don't have kids to work it.
So I don't know the history
think
of how
that was
long.
So
why.
you're telling me that every kid in the junior class, they can't,
Probably not every
get,
kid,
they
but
can't get 7 or 8 kids to work the concession stand?
Once again, not,
I don't think this is
Having to do
something that
research.
requires board approval. I think this is something you guys
No,
should talk
I just had a
about
question
at a
on
different time.
the accounts and
That's all I'm saying.
So do you have a question on a particular account?
no, I
That's-
just was in general trying to figure out.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve 3.2.
Second.
Who said second first?
Luke?
Dr. Matusek?
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Choate?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
Okay. Agenda item 3.5,
Kind of already just,
approve fundraisers for 2021-22 school year. Did you have a specific question on the
no, it was kind
fundraisers?
of covered in the last question.
I'll make a motion to approve 3.5.
How about I second those?
Which one are you seconding?
James
Either
got
one.
it.
Either one.
I'll second.
Dr. Matusek?
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Choate?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes. Agenda item 4.1, discussion with Justin Lockwood of Oklahoma Department of Career and Technology Education on the process of becoming a member district.
so with us this evening is Mr. Lockwood from the Career Tech System. We visited a couple times on the phone, and I know we've had or Chisholm Trail and Autry out, so now somebody who can fill us in from the state level.
Pass those out for you.
Keep one myself. Well, I'm Justin Lockwood. I'm gonna sit down if that's okay. Don't wanna sound like I'm preaching to you or something. I'm Deputy State Director at the Oklahoma Department of Career Tech. One of the opportunities I get with the agency is to help schools through the annexation process, as well as those who choose to do de-annexation. The process for us is pretty cut and dried. We follow our policies, which is technically law, on the process we step through, and I can answer questions about certain things we go. But the process, there's 3 ways a school, district, or an area can join a technology center. Board of Education can pass a resolution, and you have a sample resolution with you. They can, second way is the patrons can sign a petition themselves. The third way is county commissioners can vote to put an area in. So those are 3 ways that an area can join, because there are certain populations in the state, certain areas, districts that aren't. So we'll talk about the example of a board passing a resolution. So if you as a board, after your conversation, decide that you want to join a tech center, you would simply pass a resolution. That resolution is sent to whichever technology center you were to choose to join. Their board would then take action. I'm pretty certain that whichever district you chose to join would welcome you with open arms. That's their decision as a board, the same as it is yours, but I would guess that they both would be willing. Once they take action on it, it then comes to me. The next step is we have our civil rights coordinator does a study, and when I say a study, that makes it sound grander than it is actually. He actually looks at your student data and the technology center that you chose to go to. He looks at their data, demographics, and makes sure that there is no protected class of individuals, whether you're talking minorities or anything else, that would be negatively impacted. And I can't even hardly give you an example of how that would happen, but there are some far-fetched ways that could happen. But If there's no negative impact, and his study is literally, he does it as a computer, and he can pull the data from the state and see what your population is, and he, within a week's time, not even a week's time, literally within a few days, he generates a report that says, whatever it says usually, that there's no negative impact. I then get it put on a state board agenda, and the state board takes action to call for an election. They pass a resolution. Once they pass a resolution calling for election, I then work with the election board that in your home school, home district, and that election is held. We as an agency cover all the cost of that election. We do not pay for your advertising cost if you do flyers, or if you do pamphlets, or if you mail something home, or you send something with the kids or whatever. That's on you. But as far as paying for the election, we cover that cost. The election is held. Once the results come back from the election board, they go back to the state board. Our state board looks at it and basically certifies that you are then in a technology center if it passes. And the pass rate's just a 51%, just one vote over half.
So it's not like a bond issue then that requires a supermajority?
No supermajority. And there is a process. I'm always asked about getting out of a technology center, and there's a process to get out. It's not a lifetime commitment. There's a de-annexation process, and that can happen with patrons can do a petition. There's ways that can happen too if a district doesn't feel they're being. We had 2 districts 3 years ago that thought they wanted out. Actually, the patrons passed a petition. It was not from the board, and it got to the state level. The patrons were misinformed. They thought they were going to take that millage that they were going to save and build a new gym with it. Well, when you leave the technology center, that millage is gone. You don't get it. And so when their school boards heard that, their school boards became vehemently opposed to the de-annexation, even though their patrons had passed it. And when they came to the board, our state board denied the request because the schools themselves asked to stay in. And so the millage does, if you join, then if you get back out the millage, you don't get to keep the millage. And the millage rate will depend on the technology center that you join.
Do you know how they determine that millage rate?
Millage rates at tech centers are between 10 and 15 mills. I know Autry is at 15. I can't tell you off the top of my head what Chisholm is. And basically the last 5 can be a building fund for them. So if they're 10 is their base, and then however much millage they want for a building fund. So like Autry has a full 5 for building, and so they have 15 mil. I'm sorry, I don't know Chisholm's off the top of my head. I tried to look at my phone a bit ago, but we changed our website.
Right at 12.
I think it was right around.
They're a little less than
I don't want to quote on it, but I think, yeah, sounds right.
Yeah, they're a little over 12.
By a 15 mil or the 12 mil, does that affect the bondage capacity of the school district?
Doesn't affect the bonding capacity, just your large landowners or property owners are just going to be reminded that 12, 15 is tacked on top of their already existing. And then so it does increase the overall millage rate, which can impact an individual's perception on how much taxes they want to pay.
But it doesn't affect how much we can.
It doesn't affect, no, we can, technically you can bond 10% of your net assessed valuation. Now with lease revenue, you can get more than 10%.
I didn't know that cut into that at all.
It doesn't necessarily cut into it on the financial side, just the mindset of the property or landowners themselves, yes.
Is there anything that the State Career and Technology Department that you're a part of do as far as education of the community that is considering it?
What we will do.
Town halls or anything like that?
What we will do is we will support you however you ask us to. The last thing we want to do is impose our will on you or your patrons. If you say we want to have a town hall, we will help you, and I'll have my regional coordinators, as well as if you are looking between 2 technology centers, they would probably want to be a part. You probably would want one or both. If you know which one, if you don't, they would probably be a part. of that town hall, and we will absolutely help, be present, have the technology center present, do whatever we can do to help. But like I say, we want to make sure that this is a local choice. We're a state agency and we're here to help, but we're not gonna mandate anything, if that makes sense what I'm saying.
What would be a timeline, where we are right now, the first week of December, if we, to try to get it going forward and have students in classroom for fall semester next year? What is
I
it?
have the calendars, I can give you these if you'd like,
Please.
because I thought I might be asked that, so I pulled this as a separate thing. We have to follow, depending, if you want students hypothetically to start next year, let's just, if you look at June 28th as an election date, obviously the earlier the better. Part of the problem is if you say April 5th election, to have an April 5th election, I have to have the resolution to the election board by February 3rd. And that sounds like a long ways away, but you have to think everything has to happen. You have to pass a resolution at a board meeting. It can be a special board meeting, but you have to pass a resolution at a board meeting. I have to have a technology center. Most technology centers will even have a special board meeting and get it done. I've had that happen before, but they have to do it, and then I have to get it to the state board. I cannot completely always guarantee you that a state board, we're not the same as a local school board. If we miss a month, we're okay. So sometimes our state board we may not have a quorum. So I can't guarantee you that we'll have a meeting in January. I mean, I'm just being candid. So I don't, if we said we want to hit that April election, we can try, but if my board pops up and in the third week in January is when they meet, if something happens and they don't meet, we're not going to meet that election. Now, I can twist their arms and say, I've got to have a meeting, and usually I can maybe get a quorum there. But, so if you say that would be February 3rd, that's with Christmas in the middle, the holidays, that would be an ambitious timeline. Now, we have one going to election February 8th, and we did it quick. They wanted it February 8th, and we can do it if it's how fast you can pass a resolution. And if you can, before your January meeting, if you can have the town halls you need and inform your public and help them if they need to help make the decision the direction you want to go, it's going to be hard to get done in my mind early in January before your January board meeting. It's possible, but that's just that'd be an ambitious timeline.
What's the latest?
You can go back if you wanted to, for example, have a June 28th board meeting, which would get you voted in the day our board, after the election, the next meeting, so hypothetically June 28th, if our July board meeting, a third Thursday in July, our board meets, if the election passes in June 28th, our board passes it or certifies it, then boom, your students would be able to, that would be up to the technology center and you, but I'm assuming they would immediately, get in. You're immediately in the technology center, afforded all the rights. And to meet that one would be April 13th, we would have to have the resolution to the election board. Much more doable than April's possible, but I'm just saying we're gonna have to hook it up and get with it if you wanna try to do April. We can do the town halls, but that's gonna be doing town halls. I don't know when your meeting is in January, but that's doing your town halls the first week or so in January, and then getting it to the technology center. And I'd probably sweet talk them into even having a special board meeting if something happens and the board meetings fall wrong. They may be able to have a special meeting and get one in. I have had schools do special elections, school boards do a special meeting to get it in, which is possible too.
So our board meetings are the second Monday of the month, so we could technically have a special January meeting up to like the first Monday of February, actually, right?
I have to take it to a technology center board too.
When is it? When is their meeting?
I don't know which one, where you're going, but
So we'd be safe for the last week of January.
well, we'd have to talk to which technology center and make sure they could, because before February, there's two things, I take it to a technology center board and to the state career tech board.
Okay.
State career tech board meets the third Thursday of every month.
When they can.
And then we have about 10 meetings a year. 9 to 10 meetings a year. I'm not being negative about my board, but I'm just saying they understand sometimes they don't meet. And if I happen not to have a quorum in January, I don't want to leave you then you're gonna wait. Now, maybe I have a special election, but or special meeting, I'm still back. I have to get it filed with the election board by February 3rd. And so your meeting, tech center meeting, state board meeting, and a study. If I tell my guy to get a study done, he can get it done in 2 days. I'm not worried about that. If I tell him I need one, he'll get it done quick. So he's not a holdup. Because truth of the matter, as soon as you pass the resolution, I'm gonna tell him to get started on it, and he's gonna start on it. So when I take it to my board, it's already ready. So we can shoot for February 3rd. The positive about the fast, let's just get down really nitty gritty. And I have not talked to Technology Center Superintendent, but Technology Centers fill up classes. And I don't want to leave your students behind the curve if you don't get in till July board meeting. They're filling up spots in the spring. So ideally, the sooner the better. But I'll also tell you, it's going to be we'll try it. If that's the direction you want to go, we'll try it.
I notice elections are prohibited by state law in May of even-numbered years. Next year's an even-numbered year. Elections are prohibited by state law in July of even-numbered years. Next year's still an even-numbered year. So our election really has to be there's no elections in March, so it has to be in April or June if we miss the February.
Well, the February is just the deadline to hit the April meeting.
Okay.
The February 3rd date is so you get that April.
Yeah, we've passed the opportunity, the November 19th, the resolution deadline, to make it to the February 8th.
Yeah, I just filed paperwork at another school in southern Oklahoma, and we just closed that and heard from them, so that deadline's passed. And we can, how you want to interact and what you do with your local constituents, if you want meetings, you can build that in there, whether that's one meeting and you have, and I want to reiterate, it's your choice. But if you choose to have 2 technology centers come and you don't know which direction you want to go and you want the patrons to hear from both and you have them come do their dog and pony show and let your patrons hear, ask questions of the schools, ask questions of me, regional coordinators, whoever, we can all be here. Or if you want to just have one school, if you think you know which way you want to go and you have one school come,
Well, we've had both technology centers each of the last 2 months at this meeting.
Yeah.
And offered it to our patrons, and virtually got 0 response.
Yeah. And
we advertised it we desperately need our community's input on this to know how to progress.
Schools will do it several ways. One we passed that just was approved meeting before last at the state board. I'm trying to remember all the timeline. We actually passed the resolution at the board meeting and called for the election before they ever had a meeting in town. And then they had the technology center and they had their presentation to the public. We had the one that we just filed for the February 8th election. When they had a special board meeting that I went to, and they had a regular meeting. They passed a resolution about a week later, and they did not, before they passed the resolution, have a town hall. Then after that, they had the town hall. So, but at the same turn, it has been practice in the past for boards to have the town hall, like you say, boards giving the public the chance before they pass the resolutions. I mean,
Through discussion, this is off the topic of timeline, but through the discussion, one of the things that was asked and discussed was, can a school, for example, where we don't have to raise a minimum of 12 or 15 meals, if we say that as we want to have a self-contained 2 programs here, and we figure it's going to be a budget of $200,000, so we only want to do a partial millage to our taxpayers of, say, 3 meals, that generate us $240,000 a year. that we could stay on campus and all that money be used directly here. Do you have the option of breaking it down like that and still be part of the career tech system?
I don't think that option, I've talked to legal to make sure, I've never heard of that option, I don't think that we have the ability to allow you
To do that?
to do that, I'm not saying it, I don't believe so. I'll have to talk to our attorney and make sure that I'm giving you the correct answer.
Sure.
But I do not believe that's an option.
Okay.
And other ways, try to get an approved program through our agency, much same as your ag program, or what, I don't know what all the programs you have, I know you have an ag program, but whatever you have, and just get your 411 and your 412 money and do that. That would mean applying for, if you hypothetically said T&I program, I don't have any idea what you're looking at, but if you went to T&I, you'd have to start a new program and then ask for it to be funded. They're not funded as high as, for example, an ag program is, because ag is considered a 12-month program, and they're not. So the 411 and the 412 money, the program money and the, don't want to use numbers, the program money and the money that we give you to help pay for your teacher's salary is a little bit less than an ag program. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Lockwood?
We will do whatever we can do to help. 100%, if you want a town hall and you want us to, I'll have people here. I'm sure the schools will come again, anybody, whichever, if you knew which way, one or both, whatever, that's fine. If you just want people to come talk, ask questions, and you want, I can myself be here, or have a regional coordinators, somebody can be here, completely fine. We just, as a state agency, it's a local decision, and we respect that. And I mean, I've been a superintendent of a K-12. I didn't want Big Brother coming in and telling me how to do stuff, and that's not what we're about. But we're here to support however we can. I'm obviously high on career tech. I wouldn't be deputy director if I didn't like it. But it's your choice. If it's not right for your patrons, it's not right.
How many career tech centers are in Omaha?
29 tech centers, 59 campuses throughout the state. We cover majority. I don't know if you've seen a map. I probably should have brought a map. I don't want to pour salt in a wound. We use the term white spots on the map, and because we color code each technology center, and white spots are where people are not members. There's a white spot around the lake, Medill, Kingston, Tishomingo. That's a white spot. There's one over around near Rattan in deep southeastern part of the state. There's one up north in Osage County. This area, Coyle, is a white spot. And then you get out west of Woodward, out all the way out through the Panhandle, is all a white spot, and don't have technology centers.
Grant County still a white spot? Medford?
Yes. And there's others, but I mean, and we just had, Mangum just joined, and Turner's called an election. So we've got those two that are looking to join. If we wanted to, obviously, I think the regular January meeting is out of the question with Christmas break coming up and everything to have sufficient time, I think. But I think we do have enough time in January to have 2 or 3, or the invitation to have 2 or 3 meetings. And then that's last week of January, which would give them plenty of time before the February meeting. We could, if needed to, could call a special meeting if we wanted to discuss it and even make a final decision there, and obviously let that be an open forum as well that night to see if you want to. So those are kind of other than that, we'd have to go back to that June, and we'd have plenty of time to prepare for that. But I think January we would have enough time to get word out and, create different surveys and, like I say, invitations for town halls. So. But remember, I need to have it to the state board in January. In January? Yes, because the February 3rd is the date I have to deliver to the election board February 3rd. And our board 3 boards have to take action on it before I file the paperwork. And
That's to get students in for the fall semester.
well, I think, I don't want to speak for a tech center, I'm pretty sure if they think you're coming, I don't want to speak for them, I think we can get students in.
So what is the January date then for that state meeting?
Be a third Thursday.
Third Thursday.
Mr. Ashlock, when is Autry's meeting?
First Monday of every month.
Do we call it special, you think? I know you can't
I'm
speak
sure
on
they
their
will.
behalf, but do you know?
I'm going to I don't want to speak for them, but I'm gonna guess if they get a chance to get somebody in, they're gonna do whatever they gotta do to get. I think probably every tech center in the state would have a special board meeting if it took that to help somebody get in. I don't want to promise, but I don't speak for a board, but I think they probably would. And state board, it's just, I can beg and plead if something happens and we don't have a quorum.
I mean, we could, third Thursday of January is January 20th, and we meet on the 10th. You know, you could have a couple that week, one the night before, or call like a special meeting on the 18th, that would be 2 days before, or probably the 19th, even on that Wednesday, because the 18th you're gonna have basketball games.
The only reason you're rushing to do the February is to try to eliminate the chance that our kids would be excluded because of enrollment in classes.
And I would like to think that whichever tech center would understand and work with you and get your kids in, but I just know that it's competitive to get in programs, and they
If that's too much of a rush, then just go back
Yeah.
to June 28th and, yeah.
I mean, as far as town halls, they can fall whenever in relationship to the board meetings. Our board, they're gonna meet, and as soon as, if you pass a resolution, and if the technology center passes a resolution, our board's gonna pass a resolution. I mean, I would assume, and I don't wanna speak for the board, but I'm 99% sure they will pass a resolution, and it's done. If I have just literally a few days, I can drive the paperwork to the election board. FedEx overnighted the last one. I mean, we can get our part done. I literally need a couple of days to get the paperwork done and get it through legal, because I have a lawyer that reads it, because we're very specific on language that goes on a ballot. And so the lawyer, assistant attorney general for the state reads it, and it gets very detailed, and then once it's all done, so we can fast track that piece. We just have to get 3 board meetings in January to get.
Can you talk to both the technology centers and see what, if we did it in June, as far as possibility of, or what kind of issues we might have getting the students in the fall?
Well, I
In
mean,
class.
that's kind of been answered. Mr. Thomas has said that, you know, they will work and do what they can, and we'll make sure kids get in. So regardless, they're good. Enid's gonna be a little more limited just because of the availability, what Mr. Hughes said. And so there's no way at this point in time with enrollment for Mr. Ashlock or Mr. Hughes to say, but it'd probably be safe to say maybe a couple of their programs would be full. Is that a safe statement, Mr. Ashlock?
It's safe to say yes.
But knowing which ones,
Yeah.
and if our kids would be interested in it, yeah, not knowing what our kids are even involved in, or you could say historically, you know, this program is usually full, yeah, I don't think we'd be able to answer that.
What's our current mill?
Hmm?
What's our current millage here for landowner? I mean, the Hennessey, I mean, what's?
17 on the bond issue.
17?
Mhm.
Anyone have any other questions for Mr. Lockwood? Okay.
On
Thank
the
you.
same subject, yeah, and thank you. Mr. Faulkner, I know we had some high school students go to Chisholm Trail for a tour a week or 2 ago. Did you get feedback from them, and have they had an opportunity to go to Autry as well?
They have not had an opportunity to go to Autry. As far as like specific percentages, I don't have that, but I can tell you I have a lot of students interested in career tech. So, I mean, the majority that I've talked to, probably at least 12 kids I've talked to that are adamantly they want to go to career tech next year. But I haven't spoken to all, I mean, there's 70-some sophomores, so I haven't spoken to all of them, but quite a few of them have told me they're interested in it.
Do you have an Autry tour set up?
Not that I know of.
I know a guy sitting to your left that you might be able to speak with. Because that's the kind of feedback, I mean, from the students, because they're and this year's sophomores would be the first students into that. So, you know, if we're doing all this for 2 kids that want to do this, then, you know, but.
This is gonna require an administration that highly supports the VOTEC system. If we are going to burden our taxpayers in this manner, you know, it's gonna take an administration that year in and year out is pushing kids to take advantage of the VOTEC. I'm not gonna ask my taxpayers to do this if we're not gonna do that.
Agreed.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood.
Any questions?
Thank you.
Feel free to,
And you won't hurt our feelings if you get up and leave, so,
well,
because I know you've probably got to drive.
I used to be a school superintendent, so just bring me back.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Agenda item 4.2, discussion and possible board action regarding changes to policy item 313 and 515.
So briefly, just want to discuss these, or 313 on the travel reimbursement. We had been paying less on mileage, and that's when they take their own car, and that's only if they take their own car when a school vehicle is not provided, because we try to have one for them. So if they choose to take their own car, we don't pay mileage. But instead of, if the IRS rate changes to 50.2, and then 58, we're not coming to you every month, and we're just saying we're paying the IRS current reimbursement rate in your own personal vehicle. Okay? And then the other part of that is changing the per diem. It was $30 a day, changing it to 40, just because
45.
we did 45. Okay, so before it was $10 a meal, and you guys have, I'm sure, been out. You can't eat right now for less than $10 a meal, roughly anywhere. So change it to 45, 50, on average $15 a meal if somebody's staying all day. So
Go back to the travel, what was it, what is it? What is our current policy and what is the amended?
Current policy said that you reimbursed at 42 cents.
I think it was
40.
40 or 42.
And the IRS rated a little over 50 cents, 50.5 or something like that. So we're just saying that we'll just always.
So the old one was 40 cents per mile.
40 cents per
The
mile.
new one is just gonna say we're gonna reimburse at,
IRS.
Whatever IRS rate is, yeah.
in case, so we don't have to look at it.
That
like
way,
you said,
we just always stay consistent with that.
So we don't have to do this every time the IRS.
That is
changes.
correct, yes. And then the 515 student transfers, and I know there's been a lot of discussion on this, and this is, now, the reimbursement rate, that's a local policy. We can make that, you can make it whatever you want. The student transfers, you have a few options within it, but that's obviously a legislative action that we have to enact by January 1 and have a local policy. We have had a policy, basically, and all schools in our area have done it this way, where you have a certain percentage, you're not gonna take kids based on the fact if you have to hire a new person to help educate that kid. Grades, attendance, discipline, those have been the big things. What is changed in all of this is really for districts in very rapidly growing areas where you have hundreds of transfers waiting, and it's the deal where we have to have your policy in place that way if it's date and time stamped, what was happening is somebody might have been in line, they knew they were second in line to get into third grade, and all of a sudden they found out that somebody who was 14th bumped them. And they have the same grades, attendance, discipline, have no issues, but all of a sudden maybe this person has potential to be a stellar athlete, something involved, whatever the reason may be. So now the process is, now that person can appeal, and if we as administration have not showed why we denied this person and showed and proved to you, then you can override us as a board. If that person still feels that they can go, that we didn't follow the policy, that you guys just took our side, they can now appeal to the State Department of Education. So it's really schools that, I was talking to Cashin, I think they've got over 100 kids on the waiting list right now, and they don't take anybody but teachers' kids because they're growing so fast in their buildings. For us, we're pretty fortunate. We've denied a few this year because one of those three, the grades, attendance, discipline, is not there, but for the vast majority, we've accepted all of them. So what we would post on the website is that we would accept like 4 per grade level. That would manage it. You're supposed to visit it every 3 months, but we'll accept up to 4 transfers per grade level. And then once we hit that max, then come back to the board and say, okay, this puts us at 75 in this grade, 62 here, we're still good here. But there's a lot of districts, they're literally having to go by classroom, because they're so packed, or it's just that cutthroat to try to
Well,
get.
I know Bixby, and I just read this last week, they added 800 students to their district from last May to this August. I mean, that's Hennessey Public Schools District, our entire population, K through 12, they added that in a 2.5 month period this summer.
And I'd be willing to say probably 0 transfers besides employees' kids. Because they're, that area.
Well, and then
They're
all of a
just-
sudden, we need 20 more teachers.
Yes.
When
You know.
we had 40 retire or resign or leave the field, and it's.
That is correct, yeah. So for us, like I said, it doesn't affect the rural schools too much. It's mainly a metro area issue, and like I said, we still would follow the process and timestamp just in the event that somebody, that we have to deny them, then they could come to you, and if you see where we didn't do a proper due diligence and they did fall in that criteria, then you could override it. And one thing I want to point out, this is a legislative action, board policies created by SDE, worked with OSSBA, they sent it to us. This has nothing to do with OSSAA eligibility. So with this policy, a kid from Hennessey could go to Wacomas. If they're not happy, they could come back here. They could get even one more transfer if they wanted to go to Dover and come back here. But as soon as they went to Wacomas, they'd have to file for a hardship. If they're athletics, so they're not eligible. OSSAA eligibility has nothing to do with this. They would be ineligible.
Yeah, I think that was a lot of confusion.
It was a lot of
When this
confusion.
passed last
That's right.
year, that, oh, good, I gotta
Yeah,
play football at
I just
Hennessey
got
and
to go,
basketball at
that's
Kingfisher.
right, that's right. And then two totally different
Yeah.
entities, so just wanted to clarify that with the board. So,
So it's not like the NCAA portal.
no, it's not the NCAA portal. So, those are the two policies that I would recommend to the board.
I will move to approve.
Second,
Dr. Matusek?
yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Choate?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes. Agenda item 5, new business.
No new business to be acted on.
All right. Agenda item 6, superintendent's report.
Okay, so follow up on track, they have started milling the asphalt on that. That should take a couple weeks, and then they'll come in and they'll prepare the subsurface and, get the rock down and pack everything, and then based on weather, come back in and have asphalt. And then after that, once the asphalt's down, then it may sit for a while, but once they get an extended period of time, being that 21 days, to come in and put that top layer, that 13 millimeters on, so that's where it'll push it into that April, May. So we should get to run on it before track season is over at some point in time. It looked like the runways, the concrete doesn't need to be tore up on the runways for the long jumps and the high jumps. That'll save us a little bit of money right now. They don't have the final tabulation, but I'm guessing, 15, 20,000 maybe, so a little better than the full 913. Softball field, if you've been able to drive by that, the visitors dugout, the walls are up, not the roof. They've started on the side over here, the 4 poles are up, and they've got the footing dug for the stem wall that they'll build on the backstop. Got a quote for spraying of the baseball, softball, and football fields, so we'll do that. That way, maybe grass will be a little lusher and a little safer for our kids. You guys have noticed on the east side of this campus, the ditch, the city cleaned that out. That looks a lot better. So that is talking with an engineering firm that had worked with it the last time in the planning process of the bond issue of trying to put together a cost estimate. And that's where we're at with a lot of things, is just a cost estimate. The architect, they've been super busy and they didn't have time to prepare for us any of the things that, kind of hit them on with the current building on the northeast corner of the football field that Gary keeps a couple buses in of, adding on to it, making it additional locker room space and moving football over, making that whatever we want it to be, adding on to the transportation. So those are just kind of playing the waiting game on that. So once we get budget estimates on that, then I can come back to you. And then the other thing, ditch, FFA should be started here pretty soon. So we've got the rock paid for that was in the encumbrances, saved a little bit of money on that, but he thought he could get started on it here probably in a couple weeks, so.
So that massive dirt pile will be gone?
Yes.
Will we need any of that dirt pile for what we're doing on the street?
We'll know how much they use and go from there if we can. A lot of it, he said, is really not very good. So throwing it maybe on the FFA is one thing and covering it with rock, but where we're looking at putting it may not be. So there's other possibilities that he knows that we may just have to haul it, be better off hauling it off and giving it away because it's got a lot of bad debris in it that Can't be used. And then the other thing that,
Stuff sticking out of it. There's things sticking out of it,
Yeah.
rebar, PVC.
Gotcha.
and then one of the other things, as far as space that we're getting prices on, the current middle school gym, serves as the wrestling room. And that has to be, the mats have to be taken up because when the elementary kids are eating lunch in there, they have to use it for PE. And I know it doesn't sound like much to roll those up daily, but I've done it, and it is a hassle. You lose time, and it's just every day to do it. So starting wrestling, a couple years ago, obviously we don't have a wrestling room. One of the quotes we're getting is to go west of the middle school gym and add on there. And it's kind of a little bit of an L shape, but you could put some locker rooms. But we got to think about 2 locker rooms because we do have, some girls, and there's quite a bit of interest in that. I've been talked to about, I've been enough to visit with Russ Choate about it, getting a wrestling mat, that hosts for duels and tournaments and what have you. Visited with the Dahmer rep, and he recommends waiting to know where you're going to put it, because if we go west of that building, for example, it's roughly 35 by 100, and what they'll do is one side will be your little circle practice mats, they're smaller, and then they can cut it and prepare it that when you take it over there, so that's why they say kind of wait as long as you can if you're not in a big hurry for it, and then when you know where you're at. So the wrestling, that's a priority. If we could get the transportation that went on the northeast corner of the football, get it added on, and whatever we need to do to get locker rooms and maybe displace football, or move football over there, and then that locker room there could become completely wrestling. Wrestling in the winter, that could be the visitors' locker room in the fall. That would be a possible solution. But with that, Coach Walker is here tonight. We got to host the first tournament. Of course, it's a Little League tournament. We had, obviously some cool kids in it.
I was gonna say, I came to that.
Yeah, and,
That was
but
amazing.
it kind of give you an update, not only how the tournament went, but where they are with numbers, not just, where we're at 7 through 12, but also, where's this thing, or if kids stay with it, where's this projecting? So, Coach Walker, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Okay, absolutely. Thank you again for allowing me to speak tonight. The kids have definitely taken a liking to the sport. It's something that really caught me by surprise when I first got here. I wasn't expecting a lot of the kids just to dive into it. Kind of like Mr. Sternberger said, we had our first tournament on December 4th, hosted here in the Dome. Had about 320 to 350 wrestlers from kind of the regional area. We actually had some from Texas and Kansas as well coming and competing in it, and generated a lot of revenue for not only the Little League program. We kind of grouped it all together, and so it will be shared amongst all 3 levels, high school, middle school, and Little League. I was recently able to get a online store, not me, but us as a unit. Little League parents have my back. They've kind of really, with the tournament, they were the saving grace. They kind of threw that whole thing together. I was just there to coach, so I don't want to take a bunch of credit for that at all. Russ and Missy Choate and Cherie Hicks and a lot of folks were on board in that, making that happen, and so I thank them very, very much. But the kids are not only through the Little League program through high school. I think right now we probably have roughly 70 to 80 kids combined through all those programs. But I continuously have the one thing is girls. Women's wrestling is the fastest growing sport in the nation, and a lot of girls keep coming up to me. Well, I don't know. I actually had a girl come to practice tonight and try it for the first time, and I was like, "How are we liking it?" She's like, "It's so much fun. Like, why didn't I start?" So I definitely think that this community can thrive in this sport. The school can definitely thrive in the sport of wrestling. And I just, again, thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to be able to be here tonight and to help these kids out with this sport that we're trying to do. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, I was gonna add to that. When we built the Dome, we were pretty self-conscious about wanting it to be a community and school facility. And I was talking with Mr. Choate that day,
Russ Choate, and at the tournament, and he indicated to me that not only was the Dome pretty much full and had these 300 plus wrestlers there all day long, but the previous evening they sold out the local hotel, to sleep in. They had had restaurants staying open on Saturday that are normally closed on Saturday. And then, of course, all just a little foot traffic for gas, take a gas or a Subway sandwich, and there's no way to really quantify, what that amount is, but I was pretty impressed with the numbers, and I talked to some people from outside of town, asked them what their experience was. It was all positive. They loved the facility. They loved how it was run. It was a bang-up deal.
I was there for not a long time, a
Did you
short
wrestle?
time.
Did
They
He
wouldn't
could.
let me.
He could, though.
And make weight.
They, I was blown away. The amount of people that were there. There was people everywhere. I mean,
And they compared it to other venues where, I won't mention the town, but it's kind of east and north of us, a long-time wrestling power. But they talked about how, it's always so crowded and people are on top of one another. And they appreciated the extra space that we had and just the layout. And
Right, that was kind of the main thing, because a lot of people really complimented us on the facilities. And, I had a few folks from, again, I'll do like you, I won't mention the towns, but, dude, I wasn't expecting this, like, what class are you guys? I'm like, we're 2A, like, what in the world? And so, that was one thing, and even this last weekend, we went to the Watonga Little League Tournament, and there were even still coaches and, some parents, I had maybe 6, 7, 8 people come to me throughout that whole day, and, how'd you guys tournament end up? Like, Ponca City coach, we're bringing our whole team back next year. There were a few teams that went to different tournaments. They're like, you know what? Like, we heard about the awards you guys gave away, and really just starting on time. That's the biggest thing in wrestling, is starting on time and ending at a decent hour. And we started both sessions on time and got done. I was done cleaning up in the dome. I was the last one to leave, and I think I was out of there by 5:30, 6 o'clock. Before it really got too dark, and so you typically don't see that in a lot of wrestling tournaments. And again, I think that tournament specific will just continue to grow. I wouldn't be surprised if we added 200 more wrestlers next year.
And the way it was laid out, they didn't even have the bleachers pushed back. They had 3 mats set up just right down the center. And I would imagine, I don't know the size of those, but I would imagine if you push the bleachers back, you could put 3 more.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You could have 6. So.
Well, what it did for the community, but, when you mentioned 70 to 80 kids that are involved, from, what is the first age that they're doing it? 4 or 5?
4 or 5 years old.
Yeah,
5 years
and all the
old.
way through seniors in high school. These kids that now have an opportunity to do something, that may not be basketball players, but and you mentioned the popularity with girls at the duel the other night. I mean, one of the best wrestlers I saw was that 120-pound girl from Watonga. And it was the best match of the night, aside of Keegan's match probably. But, when you see those, and then there's a kid that we know that I think he's a 7th grader here in town. If he weighs 90 pounds, he probably, he might be 80 pounds as a 7th grader. Well, you know what? He's wrestling other 80 pounds, kids his same size. It's an activity they can do. They're, somebody like that, too small for football, too small for basketball, but still can have the opportunity to compete in something against somebody of the same size. And, to give these kids the opportunity from age 4 all the way up, something else in the winter, and we have the facility to do it, and now the program, I'm really excited for the direction that we're going.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. All right. Thank you, Mr. Sternberger. Agenda item 7, personnel. 7.1, proposed executive session to discuss annual evaluation and contract of Superintendent Jason Sternberger.
Move to enter.
Second.
Dr. Matusi?
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Choate?
yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes. All right, we're returning to open session. We entered executive session at 7:54 with a 5-minute recess. During the executive session, we discussed the annual evaluation and contract of Mr. Sternberger. All board members were present. We did bring Mr. Sternberger into the executive session, and then we returned to open session at 8:45. And of course, no votes were taken. Okay. Agenda item 7.2, discussion possible board action regarding the superintendent's contract. I'd like to make a motion that we renew Mr. Sternberger's contract for the 2021-22 school year.
That would be 22.
22-23 school year, excuse me.
I will second that amended motion.
Thank you.
Dr. Matusek?
Yes.
Mr. Lau?
Aye.
Mr. Choate?
Yes.
Mr. Griffin?
Yes.
Mr. Tillman?
Yes.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Matusek?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes?
Aye, 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 yes.
Okay.
Yes.